Welcome, future NGO leaders, to Week 10 of our Master's Program in NGO Management. Today, we're diving into a masterclass explainer on MEAL, that is, Monitoring, Evaluation, Accountability, and Learning. We're going to take these big, broad academic theories and translate them into practical, on-the-ground survival tools. Because let's be honest, in today's fiercely competitive funding landscape, just doing good work, it isn't enough. You have to systematically prove you're doing good work, usually while staring down a terrifying donor reporting deadline. So, here's our roadmap for the session. We'll be hitting 5 key areas. First, monitoring versus evaluation. Then, building the results chain. Third, designing indicators and targets. Fourth, mixed methods and participation. And finally, accountability, ethics, and learning. All right, let's jump straight into Section 1, monitoring versus evaluation. Diagnosing your NGO's health. Now, as you step into the field as managers, you absolutely must draw a hard, clear line between these two concepts. Monitoring, that's a continuous, ongoing process. It's what happens every single day, week, and month to check on your implementation schedules, track how you're using your budget, and ensure basic service delivery is happening. Evaluation, on the flip side, is periodic. It happens maybe at the midpoint or the very end of a project. It's when you take a step back, take a deep breath, and analyze your actual achievements against those original objectives you set out to hit. To put it simply, monitoring asks the daily operational questions. Are our resources being used correctly today? Did our staff actually show up? Did we buy the right supplies? Evaluation asks the much tougher, big picture questions. Did we actually move the needle on our overarching goals? Essentially, one ensures you're doing things right, while the other ensures you're doing the right things. Moving right along to Section 2, building the results chain, understanding cause and effect. Let's walk sequentially through the results chain logic model, which is practically the backbone of all NGO planning. We always start with inputs. That's the staff, the money, the raw resources we inject into a project. Those inputs then fund our activities, like, say, holding a workshop or physically building a well. Now, those activities generate outputs. These are your immediate countable products, like exactly 50 people trained. But, and this is absolutely crucial, we cannot stop there. Those outputs must lead to outcomes, which are these short to medium-term behavioral changes. For instance, those 50 trained people actually securing better jobs. Finally, the whole chain builds to your ultimate impact, that long-term, massive societal change like regional poverty reduction. But here is a pretty sobering reality you need to grasp. As your organization moves from generating those immediate outputs toward trying to achieve long-term impacts, your direct control inevitably dilutes. You have total 100% internal control over your inputs and activities. But by the time you're aiming for long-term community impact, you're suddenly relying on a massive web of stakeholders and totally unpredictable external variables. Think about it. You can easily control the purchase and delivery of a vaccine, but you absolutely cannot solely control the long-term health trajectory of an entire nation. Okay, Section 3, designing indicators and targets to measure our progress. You literally cannot measure progress without first establishing a baseline. Your baseline is your starting line. What exactly did the community look like before you arrived? Only after you know that can you set your targets. And in modern NGO management, setting targets isn't just about throwing a dart at a board or taking last year's numbers and bumping them up by a few percent. The gold standard here is benchmarking. This means looking at peer organizations who are delivering similar public value and using their performance levels to inform your own rigorous, realistic targets. Now, a major pitfall here is data quality. Broad conceptual definitions absolutely must be translated into strict operational definitions, or your program's data quality will tank. Let's take a concept like adult literacy. Conceptually, yeah, that means the ability to read and function in society. But operationally, for the folks actually out there collecting your data, what does that mean on a Tuesday afternoon? Does it mean passing a specific 10-question standardized test? Does it mean successfully filling out a job application on their own? If you don't define it operationally, your staff will measure it inconsistently, and frankly, your data will be completely useless. Right, let's head into Section 4, mixed methods and participation for data collection. In the evaluation space, you're constantly going to run into this classic debate pitting two types of data against each other. In one corner, you have qualitative data. This is the rich, narrative context, the individual beneficiary stories, the messy, beautiful nuance of human experience. In the other corner, you have quantitative data, the hard, cold statistical evidence, the exact number of people served, and the precise percentages of positive outcomes. But here's the thing. As modern managers, you shouldn't be forcing yourself to choose just one. Adopting a pragmatist, mixed methods approach intelligently combines both. This philosophy focuses heavily on practical, observable consequences. By actively reconciling the hard numbers with the human stories, you significantly reduce your own evaluator bias. Plus, it ensures you're drawing accurate, holistic conclusions about the actual role your NGO is playing out there in the real world. Furthermore, to truly understand your impact, you can't just assess everything from behind a desk. You've got to utilize diverse participatory mechanisms. We're talking about setting up regular information sharing meetings, facilitating actual community evaluations, and running direct surveys with your partners. The whole point is to capture authentic, unvarnished feedback directly from the communities and local partner organizations you're trying to serve. You have to ensure their voices are genuinely shaping the project's direction. And that brings us to our final section, Section 5, Accountability, Ethics, and Learning, where we look beyond the metrics. We really need to heed this sharp academic critique from Issa G. Shivji. He warns us that in today's hyper-competitive environment, the corporatization of NGO metrics can be incredibly dangerous. When we become obsessively fixated on strategic log frames, quantifying every single input, and just bending over backward to please external donors with corporate efficiency metrics, well, there's a very real risk that the actual human mission, the messy, unquantifiable, complex reality of social change, gets completely silenced or ignored. So, how do we combat this tunnel vision? Well, the evidence we gather shouldn't just act as a shiny report card to hand over to funders. Looking at the organizational impact triangle, we see that true MEL practices actually evaluate the health of the NGO itself. We should be constantly measuring our own internal capacity building, our systemic health, and how much we're improving our staff's skills. Remember, evaluation is a mirror for the organization to look into, not just a window to stare out at the community. As you prepare to wrap up this master's program and step up to lead the next generation of NGOs, I want to leave you with a final provocative question. When you look at your spreadsheets and you analyze your results chains, I want you to ask yourself, are your metrics simply serving the donor's need for a clean, tidy report? Or are they genuinely serving the community's need for real transformational change? Keep that tension front and center as you go out into the field. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you in our next session.